Hello, friends and family from Life's Journey United Church of Christ. This is Pastor Micah. Earlier, I shared some reflections from our denomination, a video of a prayer service that I invited all of you to join in response to what has been going on in this country. But I also wanted to personally share some thoughts myself to you as a pastor. This week, I think all of us have been drawn into the varied responses to the suffering of our neighbors, and for some of us, our own suffering. We have witnessed a litany of losses and pains. We have seen over 100,000 die from the coronavirus. The number's getting larger every day, without a vaccine yet in sight. We also have been brought in the events of the past week and a half to remember the suffering of people in our country. Our national leaders with the United Church of Christ, in a recent article, described the ways in which our country has been brought face to face with the suffering of people of color. Opening a litany in that article with a challenge to our churches. And I want to just read an excerpt of this to you because it pictures, I think, what we've been going through. They write, a man was lynched by police in Minneapolis last week. George Floyd was lynched on the streets of Minneapolis, Minnesota, with the knee of an officer who needed no news. As comrades looked on, reminiscent of the public lynchings of the past, George Floyd pleaded for breath for over 5 minutes as the callous, vigilante actions of 4 officers hooded in blue ignored his plea. The unrestrained white rage that stalked Colin Kaepernick taking a knee on AstroTurf to protest violence against black bodies escapes this country's watchful gaze as an authorized officer takes a knee on the throat of a black man pinned to the asphalt. A man was lynched by vigilantes in Brunswick, Georgia on February 23rd this year. Ahmaud Arbery's life was choked from his body by bullets plowed through his chest, fired from the gun of white vigilantes, self-deputized to guard white fragility from the threat of a black man free enough to run where he chooses, as comrades looked on. No charges were filed initially. We might never have known, except such violence is never fully satiated without public display. The taping of their triumph sealed their fate. A woman was lynched by police in Louisville, Kentucky on March 13th this year. Breonna Taylor's sleep was interrupted by death as officers broke into her house unannounced and riddled her body with 8 bullets in search of a black man who did not live there and was already caged. Breonna was an EMT, risking her life daily for the well-being of others. Her profession placed her at high risk for COVID-19. Her black body placed her at higher risk for what she endured. Breonna's work was essential. Her life was not. A black man was almost lynched in Central Park last week. Murder by law enforcement is the insidious mutation of vigilante lynchings. The authority to savagely murder black people and mutilate their bodies in public displays suggests the desire to stop a power beyond one's ability to kill. How many bullets does it take to stop a black body? How long must a chokehold last to make the weak feel powerful? When confronted with a resilience that cannot be comprehended, Picnics and postcards with lynched bodies on display have been replaced by live streams and private videos with the murders on display. Black people were lynched in America yesterday and all the yesterdays before. These words from our denominational leaders describe the match that sparked the fire. In the days that followed George Floyd's death, we have seen responses that shook us to the core. We have seen peaceful protesters hold hands and cry out for justice, risking their own health in the midst of a pandemic, because the pandemic of hatred must be stopped. We have seen leaders in positions of power, as happened in our Burlington with Life's Journey and my own Durham, when city leaders such as the mayor in Burlington and the chief of police joined hands with protesters, expressing a willingness to hear their cries and expressing a true desire to make systemic change to fight against racist practices. Yet, not everyone has felt heard. Hurt people hurt people. We have also seen people boil over with anger and rage. We have seen provocateurs invade peaceful crowds of protesters. Some of these provocateurs angry and wanting revenge, and many others folks who were uninterested in the cause of Black lives, who arrived simply wanting to disrupt and distract us from the cause of those crying out for justice through acts of violence and vandalism of their own. We have also seen peaceful protesters gassed and shot with rubber bullets, including one of the pastors of St. John's Church in Washington, D.C., who at our president's orders was driven out of the grounds of the church they served, where they had at that moment been ministering to the hurting. Done at our president's orders, so that Mr. Trump could have a photo op while holding a Bible with the church in the background. It's really hard to know what to do. I won't pretend I have the answers. Some of us are hurting. Some are scared. How should we respond at times like this? Though I don't have the answers, I am reminded of the example of Jesus, who in the Sermon on the Mount described first the attitudes of the heart, which can change the world, which we call the Beatitudes, and then added, "You are the salt of the earth. But if salt has lost its taste, how can its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything, but is thrown and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A city built on a hill cannot be hid. No one, after lighting a lamp, puts it under the bushel basket, but on the lampstand, and it gives light to all the house. In the same way, let your light so shine before others, so that they might see your good deeds and give glory to your Father in heaven." During our midweek reflection times that I offer as pastor over the next several weeks, I want to focus each week on a different one of these Beatitudes. But at heart, what they and the rest of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount that they begin in Matthew 5 describe is that when surrounded by the encircling darkness of our times, we cannot give up. We cannot simply roll over and surrender to that darkness in fear, nor can we give in to it by reflecting back on it more darkness ourselves. But instead, we must learn to let our lives shine bright. The Beatitudes, which I said we will reflect on over the next few weeks, paint a picture of what lives that shine light into the darkness look like. The late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King described what such a difference is like well when he said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do it. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. Hate multiplies hate, violence multiplies violence, and toughness multiplies toughness in a descending spiral of destruction. The chain reaction of evil, hate begetting hate, wars producing wars, must be broken, or we shall be plunged into the dark the dark abyss of annihilation." His words have never been more true. Similarly, our Jewish brothers and sisters in faith describe what it is to be this light in their Talmud that says, "Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now. Love mercy now. Walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to." Over the summer, I and several of my fellow clergy in Burlington and Alamance County, as well as me and some of my fellow chaplains at my hospice, are going to be exploring together in different groups the book How to Be Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. I want to challenge you also to look into how to do this, how to respond as a peacemaker, as one who is not just passively not racist, but actively works to dismantle racism itself in peaceful and nonviolent ways. If you'd be interested in joining in some of the studies on this book, let me know. Or if you'd like to be a part of a study as a church with me, working through this book and these questions, let me know. So we can look, I would encourage you to research and look into how you can be a change of thought. But I want to share something very quickly that one of you shared with me that's a good starting place. Earlier this week, Don Marvin shared with me a set of commitments Dr. King gave those who worked with him. And I want to share them with you. These are based on Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. And although there's one or two things that you'd have to change the words on to make fit, overall, they're a good way to start. And I'd like to encourage you to copy them down and try to commit them to memory and try to commit to follow them in the days ahead so we can be a difference we seek. And here's the pledge Dr. King had people give. I hereby pledge myself, my person, and my body to the nonviolent movement for change. Therefore, I will keep the following 10 commandments. I will meditate daily on the teachings of Jesus. I will remember always that the nonviolent movement seeks justice and reconciliation, not victory. I will walk and talk in the manner of love, for God is love. I will pray daily to be used by God in order that all might be free. I will sacrifice personal wishes in order that all might be free. I will observe with both friend and foe the ordinary rules of courtesy. I will seek to perform regular service for others and for the world. I will refrain from violence of fist, of tongue, and of heart. I will strive to be in good spiritual and bodily health. I will follow the directions of the movement for nonviolence and those who lead it. Again, there are parts of this that may not apply, but overall, you can change these commitments and transform them into a good starting place. So I want to encourage you to study and pray through that and practice it this week. And let us be the light this dark world needs. Amen. Amen. God bless.